Okay, let's waste no time. Let's get right into this Matrix Resurrections, the unnecessary third sequel to the unnecessary two sequels that came before it. And a movie that further devalues the first movie more than it should. Let's get the positives out of the way first. The return of Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss to their iconic roles of Neo and Trinity was cool. I like Keanu Reeves. I've always been a fan of Neo. I like Trinity. She's a badass. I'm one of the few people that actually like the relationship between Neo and Trinity. I don't really care for the storyline direction they go in, but just seeing them come back to their iconic roles was nostalgic fun. Even though that fun only lasts for so long until you see the holes that come out of it. But I'll get to that stuff momentarily. The new additions to this movie are hit and miss. Jessica Henwick as Bugs, she was okay. Nothing memorable, she was okay. Her stupid blue haircut is so modern, it makes me want to throw up. Yahya Abdul-Manti plays a new version of Morpheus, and I don't like it. Nothing against Monty. I ain't the world's biggest fan of his work. He's a decent actor. His performances don't light the world on fire, if you want me to be very, very honest. And his portrayal of Morpheus, I thought he played Morpheus like a goofy clown, and I couldn't stand it. I hated it. We couldn't bring back Lawrence Fishburne for his most iconic role, so we had to recast it with a guy who's basically acting like a goofball. Did not like it. I hated it. Neil Patrick Harris is here as the analyst. The analyst is basically the architect from the last two sequels. The catalyst, but he's basically the puppet master of this entire movie. Listen, I like Neil Patrick Harris as an actor. I thought he was fine in this movie, but the storyline and the revelation is completely convoluted and just a random mess. Again, you can only get so by on putting on decent performances. If the story does not support it, it's going to fall apart. And that's basically what this movie is. It's a movie that's held together by decent performances and a story that just recreates that first movie. But let's just run down the returning actors. Jada Pinkett Smith returns as Niobe. Why Niobe returns and not the original Morpheus is beyond me. Niobe and Neo barely had any relationship in Reloaded and Revolutions. The only commonality they had was that they lived in Zion and fought the machines. That's it. They barely had any conversations that I can remember with each other, and they have no friendship. Yet this movie treats their reuniting as these two long lost friends. Honestly, truthfully, OG Morpheus should have never have died, and he should be the one in this new city of this new human city of Io. And because I think the reunition of Morpheus and Neo is what we got robbed of. And I'm sorry, that sucks, because Morpheus and Neo had like this father-son relationship between the three movies. Like, Morpheus was Neo's mentor. We got robbed of this. As fans of The Matrix, we got robbed out of seeing something really special. Speaking of robbery, Agent Smith returns in this movie, and he's not played by Hugo Weaving. And listen, with all due respect to the actor who played this new iteration of Agent Smith, he did his best. But my friend, you are not Hugo Weaving. You don't have his charisma. You don't have his on-screen presence. And you definitely don't have his chemistry with Keanu Reeves. What made Neo and Smith such a great protagonist-antagonistic relationship was that Weaving and Reeves, they had such a good chemistry with one another. They bounced off each other so damn good. In this movie, it just, the movie's pretty much banking on you to be like, hey, it's Agent Smith. He's going after Neo. Remember Agent Smith? It doesn't work like that. You didn't fool me when I first saw this movie last year, and you didn't fool me now when I rewatched it again. You can't fool me when it comes to this shit. What else? And yeah, the supporting actors that surround everyone else, they all play their roles well. They're very forgettable. I can't remember half their names in this movie. That's how uninteresting they are. You are not Dozer. You are not Cypher. You are not any of those characters from the original Matrix movie. You are just plain and generic and forgettably and boring. In terms of the action sequences, hey, listen, I'll never discredit the Wachowskis for being bad at directing action sequences, because they're not. This movie has got good action sequences that are akin to the first, that fall in line with the rest of the trilogy. They're well done. They're beautifully shot. The cinematography looks nice and crisp. It goes back to the whole bullet time and kung fu influence that the Matrix movies were built on originally in terms of their action scenes. So I got no problems with that. I got no qualms with that. Production values. This is a really well done, good looking movie. The CGI is well integrated. There are some instances where it can look really, really bad. The use of practical effects are really good. The aged makeup they look on Jada Pinkett Smith is as realistic can be. So I got no problems with that. Production values and overall acting for the most part is really well done and very, very solid. The story had some interesting ideas, but it's more or less a recreation of that first Matrix movie. So basically, through convoluted means, after Neo saved humanity, the machines pretty much reintegrated him and Trinity back into the Matrix, but wiping away their memories. So the entire movie is basically Thomas Anderson having these flashes to a former life. It's established that he had turned those dreams of the first three Matrix movies into video games. This is the movie trying to be meta, having a meta commentary with it. And you get a lot of meta commentary in this movie to the point where it becomes like self-parody and gets really grating and very annoying. I mean, listen, the idea is interesting of suppressed memories and trying to turn these memories into video games. But when you continue to hammer it in and then you do these self-referential humor and being like, hey man, all everyone likes now is reboots and sequels and stuff like that. Maybe we should do that with the fourth Matrix game, huh? You're pretty much taking a real life situation, putting it into the movie, and it just falls flat. It just comes across as just not funny. Not funny at all. And again, once Morpheus and Bugs get into this whole thing, it recreates the first Matrix movie of, we have to free your mind again. Really, really bad. Why couldn't Neo just stay dead? Listen. Despite what people think of Reloaded and Revolutions, Neo had a satisfying conclusion to his story arc. Now we're doing this tacked on epilogue and it feels forced. It feels not fully formed, not fleshed out. And it gives the impression of people just having no idea where to take this story and what direction to go in. And this is where the whole thing with Trinity comes in. Neo has always been prophesized as the one. Now, all of a sudden, Trinity is being reconformed to be this messiah-like figure with Neo. Listen, I understand the whole thing of men and women being compatible. One can't be without the other. That's actually a decent premise you could have built off of. But having Trinity be at the same power level of Neo takes away from the specialty of Neo. And it also takes away from the specialty of Trinity. Like, Trinity was a badass fighter in her own right, but she didn't have the capabilities of Neo. Like, what Neo lacked, Trinity had, and what Trinity lacked, Neo had. Now you put them on an even playing field, and what makes either of them special anymore? The whole dynamic is off. The whole dynamic of the Neo-Trinity relationship is now off because now they're equal footing. So why do I care about the relationship and the further exploration of it? And like I said, this entire movie just has a convoluted storyline. It takes, like I said, its blueprint is that of the first movie, and then it does these things to undermine that first movie. So yeah, what we're told in that first movie of the prophesized one, not quite. It's more along the lines of the prophesized two. That's so stupid, that is so dumb. The analyst pretty much being a recreation of the architect, and his reasoning for integrating Neo and Trinity back into the Matrix was confused. You could have just let them be and let them be dead and have their sacrifices mean something. Oh, whatever. The new city of Io being formed in the shadows of Zion, who plagued themselves into destruction. That's pretty neat. That's pretty cool. That's actually that could have made for a more interesting movie than the movie we actually got, to be honest with you. Like, what happened in that 60-year period when Zion beat the Machine City? You get this whole thing of the machines going into a civil war with one another, and Zion pretty much succumbing to its own fear of destruction. And this is where Niobe starts the city of Io. That itself could have been a more interesting movie, as opposed to just a remake of the first movie, which is what this is. This is just a bland uninteresting remake of the first movie. The fundamentals are fine. The acting, for the most part, is fine. The production values and action sequences is fine. But the story is so convoluted, and it just takes away from that first movie. And like the sequels that come before it, it just tries to over-explain everything, and it further just devalues that first movie, which was cool and unique. And listen, I'm sorry. The Matrix just does not work in a modern context. The Matrix is like this cyberpunk gothic type of movie. When you put that into a modern world, it comes across as just awkward, because you got to put these modern sensibilities into it, and modern sensibilities already are awkward. Like the whole red pill and blue pill thing for the Matrix, that was interesting. When you put the modern definition into it, it comes across as a bunch of fucking modern day people talking about the choices, and it comes across as just whiny and childish to me. And listen, the integration of the legacy characters, some were handled better than most. Other legacy characters were just meh. Like I said, New Morpheus sucked. The Merovingian had came back in the middle of the movie, did absolutely nothing. Agent Smith recreated was not good. The actor there's nothing here. And that's what that's what Resurrections is. It's a movie that should have never been resurrected to a franchise that really ran its course after the first movie, to be honest with you, and then was on life support with Reloaded and Revolutions, as those two movies tried desperately to continue a story that pretty much told what needed to be told. So yeah, with all that being said, I'm gonna give Matrix Revolutions a solid. I'm giving this movie a 4 out of 10. I'm sorry. Reloaded and Revolutions are better than this. This movie should have never been made. Fundamentals aside, it's just a bore. I mean, I fell asleep twice. I've seen this movie twice, and I kept falling asleep once it got to the middle section because I got bored. If that doesn't say this movie is not worth watching, I don't know what does. So yeah, with all that being said, those are my thoughts on Matrix Resurrections, 4 out of 10. Let me know your thoughts in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.